Hello and welcome everyone to the most beautiful train wreck Jack McCarthy's ever seen. Um, we are going to be talking about so many things today. I have Alyssa Hazel with me. I would be lying if I said that we didn't spend the last 30 minutes bantering already, so you didn't get to see the best part. But I'm going to be doing more of this type of stream every Sunday, at least for a while again. Next week, I am going to have my players here with me to answer any questions you guys have. And hopefully they don't embarrass me, but who knows? They are certainly welcome to. Also, let's see. I had something else, but I guess it doesn't matter because we have Alyssa Hazel. So, Alyssa Hazel, who are you? What do you do? Tell us about yourself real quick.
Well, I am an author of speculative fiction and horror, and by speculative fiction, I kind of guess it just means I write whatever comes to mind. Usually that means like fantasy and like a little bit of just oddball kind of stories. I'm responsible for 6 books last time I checked. Hi, Jack. And
Hi,
I'm
Jack.
working. Yeah,
Who are you
Jack.
hijacking?
Oh no, Jack. I said hi,
You
Jack.
hijacking the
Yeah,
stream?
Jack. No. Jack is saying hi, and I was being polite.
Oh.
But actually, yes. Anyways, yeah. So I'm responsible for 6 books at this time. I'm trying to get 2 more done this year, and trying not to go crazy in the process. So I'm just excited to be here.
And where can we buy your books?
Right now they are all available through Amazon. Just all available there. If you're looking for audiobooks, my first audiobook is out right now. It is the adaptation of To Those Who Haunt You, narrated by Son of Sonnet. And so if you're looking for like a kind of a cheap, fun way to get into what I do, that's a great way to get started.
All right. And real quick, we have my ear trumpet has been struck by lightning. Thank you so much for the $2. And you can embarrass me as much as you want if you keep giving me money. I'm so happy with that. Anyway, I have a question for you now. You are a horror author, and I hadn't actually heard much of the term speculative fiction before today, but every one of my favorite horror authors are women. Why is that? Like, tell me why I like women horror authors more than I like male horror authors.
Okay, so I'm going to say something that may come off as sexist, but hear me out. I think that women, when you write from a female perspective, when you create horror, it's a vastly different experience. Um, I think that women, especially if you, I've heard rumors that you're super tall on X, so I don't know if that's a rumor
Me?
or not. Yeah, like
I told you I was tall.
I don't know. I heard something about it from the Dungeon Delver live stream. So I've heard that we're both you're tall, so you may not have the experience, but when you're smaller and surrounded by people who are bigger than you automatically kind of can get a sense of anxiety when you're going out and about because everything's bigger than you and louder than you and that kind of thing. Um, and I think that when you get into a feminine perspective on horror, there's a natural inclination, especially with a lot of the early female writers, that the world in some way you're kind of a little bit less powerful in it. One that kind of comes to mind for me personally that I love The Haunting of Hill House.
Shirley Jackson.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
it's
love her.
I really need to reread the book because I also fell in love with the adaptation by
Mhm.
Robert Wise. Um, and just when I was kind of going through my own motions of kind of getting out of my own like depression funk that I think a lot of people fall into in their early 20s, I empathized a lot with Nell, who's one of the main characters, of like falling into other people and falling into the influences of other people and um just becoming uh drawn into this house that is just so oppressive and is its own personality. And I don't know. I think there's something very emotionally vulnerable in that, and mentally vulnerable. And I don't know. I think that's part of the experience. And I think for women, when you read a horror story written by women, you can kind of get that connection and that emotional through line. I that being said, love my horror male authors. Poe is kind of one of my bigger influence when it comes to writing. I also draw a lot of inspiration from Junji Ito. Um, but I think that there is that uniquely feminine aspect that you get when when women take to writing horror.
I think so too. I've always been a fan of Shirley Jackson. There are a few others I like. There's a modern author, C.K. Walker.
Mm.
She's brilliant, I think. But I've always thought that women had this unique perspective with horror that for some reason, every horror author, it seems, they're always my favorite. And I have to answer this. Where have you been if you haven't heard of speculative fiction? Sometimes you just see a word and you just like don't know what it means, and you just kind of make peace with not knowing words. And yeah, no, that's definitely me.
Well, in fairness, speculative fiction is not a popular term nowadays. From what I can tell, um, I hate to say it because it sounds really cheesy, but part of the reason I started saying speculative fiction is because it sounded really unique in the space, and I think it kind of struck people as being different. But the reality is that speculative fiction is just when fiction kind of became a thing, because originally, and I'm not a historian, so don't shoot me if I'm wrong on a couple details. But when fiction and novelization started becoming more popular, speculative fiction was kind of the overarching branch, which fantasy, um, science fiction, and horror kind of fell into because they weren't developed enough as genres of their own to have their own separate classes, if that made sense. So because I typically go in and combine genres or dip into kind of different ideals of genres, I find speculative fiction works as a descriptor to kind of give an idea of what I do.
I see. All
Yeah.
right. That actually explains a lot to me. And because you know I am a TTRPG person and you know where I'm going to pivot this conversation, like you know I can't go like 10 seconds without talking about RPGs. There is a lot of horror authors in Appendix N specifically, like for example, I'm losing the name. Why am I losing the name of the most popular horror author on the face of the planet right now? Cthulhu.
Lovecraft.
Lovecraft, thank you. That was, oh, that's
No, it's
embarrassing.
fine. If you
Um,
ever want to see embarrassing, go on to
mhm.
my interview with Dungeon Delver and watch me confuse Elric with Drizzt. That was the
Ooh,
most I
yeah.
don't know
I,
why.
I don't know why. I was
I
joking.
have what I like to call Swiss cheese brain.
Yeah,
Gets
it
me in
happens.
it makes
Um,
me like it has brought it keeps me humble because I I know I'm a smart person, but when you're
it
like
happens.
sitting at a monster convention and you say that King Kong was a suit, and you mix him up with Godzilla in your brain, you just want to go and like throw yourself out of a window. It's fine.
It
It's fine.
happens. It's okay.
I know.
Anyway, yeah, so like things like the Lovecraft mythos by H.P. Cthulhu, you know.
Yeah.
Um, right. So I'm sure you've read quite a lot of that. And do you
Mhm.
run TTRPGs or are you a player? Because I know you're kind of on the periphery of the space. I know you're interested. I'm gonna get you there if you're not.
Okay, so
Mhm.
I started playing TTRPGs when I was a kid. So I'm one of four sisters. So when you have a group of five right there, my dad basically had a D&D party right there. So
Amazing.
my earliest memories were actually of playing Castles and Crusades. I played Kara the Barbarian back then. And then we went to the hero system for a stretch. So I know this sounds odd. My first D&D experiences weren't actually with D&D itself, which I think is kind of hilarious.
Yeah.
We went to the hero system for a very long time. And then I was kind of in and out of my dad's Saturday game for a long time because, as you get older, work happens, Saturdays become. So I ended up playing in a fantasy age game for a stretch. Um, then I got into college, and 5e pretty dominates every college Dungeons and Dragons club. I feel like that and Call of Cthulhu maybe are the only two game systems that I've ever seen played in those kind of situations. So 5e, fortunately or unfortunately, depending on who you ask, and I think if you asked most of TTRPG Twitter, it would be unfortunately. 5e is actually the D&D system I have the most experience with. Currently, I am in a Pathfinder game on. Sorry, just looking at the chat. Currently, I'm in a Pathfinder game, a first edition Pathfinder on Thursdays, and I've just got asked to be part of a 5e campaign that kind of meets throughout the week on the day that works the best for everybody. So I've played fairly regularly throughout my life. I've GM'd. I've tried to GM occasionally. Pre-COVID, I was trying to do like a regular thing, but you know how it gets, and then post-COVID, it's like, what is meeting up with people anymore?
Yeah.
So I
It's
so I
actually, sorry, I am.
no, you're fine, you're fine.
That's actually something that I think too is just a huge tragedy that we've lost the ability to meet up together after COVID.
Yeah.
Also, real quick, thank you so much, Jack McCarthy, for the $2. I appreciate it. Oh, what is this? Okay. And JMac, thank you so much. What's this? Girls don't play tabletop games, hogwash and poppycock. So I super appreciate it, JMac. And we're going to get into this. So I actually think, given our age difference, we've probably played about the same amount of time or about the same length of time in our lives because I wasn't allowed to play as a kid. I had the exact opposite childhood experience with you. My dad was also a nerd, but he didn't play RPGs. He played one game that was, when it came out, it was Settlers of Catan. And that meant every time we sat down to play a family game night, my dad had one game in mind that he wanted to play, and that was Settlers of Catan over and over and over and over. So that was my childhood RPG experience.
I don't know if this is accurate, but right now I have the meme that came to mind of like the little girl who's digging, and she's like, "I'm tired of this, Grandpa." Well, that's too bad. Like young Harmony, like pulling out the Settlers of Catan box. Can we play something else? No.
Right? Please, Dad. No, it was just Settlers of Catan. So I mean, we had like other games too, like Scrabble and stuff, but like mostly my dad was just Settlers of Catan. So I didn't really have the RPG experience when I was young. My family was very, very Christian, and it was kind of the Satanic Panic era. And while, I mean, I know a lot of Christians play D&D. I mean, some people argue that it's a fundamentally Christian game, but I just never had the experience growing up. So I will trust me when I say I am very jealous, but I also understand growing up with sisters. I have to say that as well. Now, we were kind of segueing into something else here with RPGs. Now, we were talking about on X, especially a little bit, the women's division. Yeah,
I didn't make the height qualifications, unfortunately.
How tall do you think I am?
I don't know. You're probably taller than me. Let's just put it like that. The running joke on X with me has to do. I get smaller every single. I think right now I'm about 3 feet tall, according to most of the people that follow me on X.
There is a picture somewhere. Oh,
I'm
sorry.
I'm 5'3" of an inch tall. So I think I barely qualify to ride some roller coasters, which I'm okay with because I don't like getting thrown around for fun.
I'm barely taller than you. I
Okay,
don't know how this meme started that I was some Nephilim or giant. Somebody made a video about how I'm secretly like it was so weird because I was like scrolling through YouTube one day, like, searching myself
Ginger
like
Blast
you. Right,
exposed for
right.
being normally
No,
normal
you
height.
don't understand. I sometimes like search my name on Twitter because I mean,
It's fun.
we do that. Yeah. And the first thing that came up was, is Harmony Ginger hiding a dangerous secret? And I was like, am I? I had to watch it. And it was like, Harmony Ginger is secretly a giant. We have never seen if Harmony Ginger is hiding a second set of teeth. And she also probably has really tiny furniture to make her look large or something. And I was like, what is this? And Scudder for Mike, as thank you so much for the $5, Scudder for Mike. What are you currently writing, Alyssa? We have to know this.
Okay, so currently in the works are two projects. I'm actually, I don't want to talk about it too much because I need to iron out some things. In talks with a publisher right now. But the two books that I can guarantee you are going to be out this year, Hell or High Water, are the sequels to The Third Test, which is currently working under the title The Second Initiative. I'm hoping to have that one out by July of this year, so that's the goal. It's going to follow Katina from the first book, along with a couple other characters. The second book that's going to come out is the end to the Among the Juniper Trees duology. Among the Juniper Trees is the book that I released in November. And I said I was part one of a planned duology, and I keep my promises. So those two are going to be out this year. After that, I'm going to collapse and then figure out what I'm doing with my life. But that is that is the goal for this year. Yeah,
sounds like a lot.
It is, but it's one of those like weird perspective things where if writing is going to be your job, your occupation, it's like, okay, treat it like a 9 to 5, set your goals, set your time frames, that kind of thing. And well, guess I got some work to do. Got some projects.
No, it's amazing. I'm like, I've never been that much of a writer. Like, I write things for my games, I write things to give to my players and stuff like that, but I've never actually been much of a writer. And I just started a blog recently, and I'm like, man, this is a skill that I am slowly developing here.
Yeah.
And also, thank you so much. My ear trumpet has been struck by lightning again. I appreciate it. Harmony Ginger Nephilim. Is it Nephilim? Nephilim?
No,
I
Nephilim.
Nephilim. Okay. Right. But I have to go back to the women's division.
Okay.
I want to know before I completely gatekeep you.
Okay.
I have to know.
Tell it to me truly, sweetheart.
What do you think the women's division is?
Okay, I personally, all right. I personally think we meet once a week. We get our nails done in gel, not traditional manicure, because we have work that we got to get done. And we got to use the glitter in the gel to bamboozle our enemies. Then, after that, we go and we play TTRPGs. No boys allowed for 6 hours once a week.
6 hours once a week, nails and TTRPGs. Whew. Okay.
That's a pretty big commitment. Not everyone can do it.
It is, and I like it. You're very close. You're like 90% of the way there. I just have to ask one more thing.
Right, tell me more.
When we sit down to play our TTRPGs with our nice manicures, how do we do timekeeping?
Okay, all right. The secret is 1 by 1 timekeeping. I think I'm saying it right.
1 by 1 timekeeping.
What I have to. what do you call the little dots? I see
The
the
little
ones.
dots, colon.
I won't know. Like, is it like 1:1 timekeeping? Like, how do you say
Just
that
one
out
to
loud?
one.
One to
Just
one.
one to one timekeeping. Yep, one to one
But
timekeeping.
my
That's it.
my
One by one.
saying bye instead of two means I'm automatically disqualified. I used the wrong
Correct.
word. I'll
Correct.
have
Correct.
to resubmit for next year's women's division.
And Ashes, thank you so much for the $5. When you get channel memberships, let me know so you can gift out a whole bunch of people. You know, I've thought about it. I don't know what to do with them. I really don't. And oops, Michael Dale, thank you so much. No boys, burn the witch. He loves us both. That's good. Thank you so much. But yeah, that's another thing I'm not on board with. I don't know if I can play RPGs without guys. Like I know like the guys have their bro SR boys club,
That's
but
true.
and I'm like, you know what? That's fine. I don't need to be part of the bro SR because the bro SR is like a boys club. It really is. And that's okay. Like men are allowed to do that. Men are allowed to have their own spaces. I don't think either of us have a problem with that, right?
No.
But when it comes down to it, when you talk about, well, we should have like a women's club and just play RPGs without guys. Like, I've done that before. And this is going to be so sexist. I'm going to get in so much trouble for saying this. All right, all right. This is
just between us
scandalous.
girls.
I've done it before. All right, yeah, no one's watching.
Okay.
I've done this before. I've had sessions of games that were only women, and you know what they did?
They talked.
They RP braided each other's hair. I was like, guys, there's a ghost dragon like under this bridge. What do you want to do? And they're like, well, we'd like to find someone for her to date, and we'd like to braid her hair. And I'm like,
you know, it is true. It's why I feel like, look, I know you wanted to gatekeep Joel,
yes.
but I feel like, just to be Joel's advocate for a second, I think if he can like learn how to like get his like a standard men's manicure, maybe we could like bring him into the fold a little bit. Maybe.
Perhaps I will play RPGs with men. They're not part of the women's division, you see. I don't know. Does the women's division include my players? I'm not actually sure because most of my players are men. And Quick says, please tell me you were like a teen when this happens. 29. Try that. But it's you know, it's what it is.
Well,
I can't play without them.
In all seriousness, I feel like there's two different women that you get when you do solely with women. Either they are like hyper violent, or they are like, that's just, yeah, it's either two looks and that's it. Like for me personally, that it's either I'm just either like a woo kind of player or a, well, diplomacy failed. 2 rolls in. Let's just go for it.
Speaking of diplomacy, how would you feel about a game where you were actually working against the other players kind of above the table? Like, I don't know how much you've gone into the Bronstein side of things.
I very little. I see the name thrown around a lot, and I'm like, well, there's the Bronstein, and then there's like the Godstein and the Gingerstein, and I'm like, oh my gosh, there's 39 different flavors of like this game. I'm never gonna keep up with it. And it's like a secret society that meets throughout the week and tracks each other's numbers. And I'm like, holy smokes, these people are dedicated.
Yes. Do you know what it is to be part of a Godstein? It is like we meet like 3 times a week. I mean, it's different groups. They're like 15 people. They'll like every one of them will meet once or twice a week, and they have an RPG session, but at the same time they're plotting against each other. Like we right now have a god of entertainment who is working on pissing off the god of war as much as possible. It's crazy.
It sounds like a lot of fun. I just I don't know if I have the time to dedicate.
I understand.
Yeah,
Don't
to
worry, you
the
don't
destruction of
look,
my enemies.
look,
I'll just write them a meanly worded email.
look, you don't got to turn me down in front of all these people. You can
Look,
tell me yes in front of all these people and then turn me down afterwards. That's totally
well, okay,
fine.
all right. So for right now, I'm considering getting into the art of viciously uh rebutting everyone around me and hurting their feelings. And
Look,
yeah, something like that.
you know what? I've always thought of it like this. I was asked one time by somebody you might know on Twitter. His name's Jeffrey Johnson. I was asked one time by him, like, why are you even into this type of game? This seems like very um not normal. And I said, because women are good at women are good at taking control of situations. Women are good at reading people. I'm very good at reading people. I'm very good at like I think a lot of women are very good at manipulation tactics, but you don't want to use it to hurt people, right? You don't
Yeah.
want to use it in environments where like somebody's going to get hurt, where somebody's like where you're actually playing with real people.
Yeah.
So it's
And
fun to play these diplomacy games where you actually kind of get to manipulate situations and play with people a little bit, but nobody's actually going to get hurt in the process.
I
That's
mean
always fun.
that's
Mhm.
fair. It's why I probably am evil more often in like solo RPG because I can do it. No one gets hurt except for that poor NPC that died. He'll respawn. He's fine. He'll walk it off. Um, I don't know. I I get that. I think that's why I don't want to say I enjoy selling books, but that is kind of one of the things like figuring out, okay, how do I word this? How do I create this? How do I develop how do I help other people see what I'm doing with the book? Um and how do I articulate it so that other people um want to get behind it? And I think that, not to sound like a marketing guru, but like when you're building a brand or like connecting with people, I think figuring out how to approach people and how to present yourself is an important part. I think women, generally speaking, can do that pretty well. Bring it around to books and Bronstein.
It's true. You know, you could be the god of literature.
uh,
You could be
I don't,
like the
I don't,
god of war and literature and basically like buy my book or else.
I mean,
That's Alyssa in my game.
that would sell a couple books.
It
That
would.
would.
It would. Mm.
All
But
right.
look,
I'll
you know
keep it
what's
in mind. If
what's
sales are
brilliant?
down next month, you guys will know if my sales are down next month if I join the Bronstein game.
You know what's brilliant about this though? You know what's brilliant about the women's division
Yeah.
and the Bro SR? You don't have to
Mhm.
be in it. Like you don't have to you don't have to be a part of something like this to do what you want to do, because the bros, like they pretty famously gate kept me. They were
Yeah.
like, yeah, no, you're not one of us, go away. And I was like, okay, I'm just
Yeah.
going to do the same type of game you're doing, or at least what I perceive as what you are doing. I'm going to put my own take on it, and I'm just going to do it over here. And you don't have to be a part of that. And we're good. And that actually won me a lot of friends. People were like, yeah,
Yeah.
that's probably the way to do it. Because I mean, the thing is, you don't need to be a part of the women's division or the Bro SR in order to
Mhm.
run a game however you want, right?
Yeah.
Um,
For me personally, in that kind of same vein, when I started writing the way I do, it may surprise a lot of people. There are a number of publishers that straight up just don't want horror stories. Um, it's something that for some publishing houses can be difficult to sell, and I've been told straight to my face in polite but firm terms, we don't want your stories. We don't want your books. Um, which in the moment can be hurtful until you realize, well, they might have been, if this isn't where my stuff is going to work, then it's not where my stuff is going to work. And I think being able to take it graciously earns you a lot of points by the people who see the interaction, or just see how hard you work outside of a publishing house, that kind of thing. I generally think that being able to take rejection with a good attitude is a lost art, and when you can master it, um, it can really set you in a place of, okay, maybe she is actually more confident and competent than first appeared, which helps me a lot because it's sometimes I have to be like fool people into thinking I'm competent, and it's how I get through life.
Well, you fooled me because you come off as extraordinarily competent to me. But anyway, thank you so much. My ear trumpet has been struck by lightning again. My campaign needs a chaotic good god. It's true. We have like every alignment covered except chaotic good. No one wanted to play chaotic good. I don't understand why. Anyway, I going from RPGs now. I know you had a recent experience with a video game that is
Yes.
that has its main premise as being an adaptation of 5e. Oh, but first we have another question. Sorry. Michael Dale, how are sales going, Alyssa? Mostly in person. You don't have to answer that if you don't want.
No, it's fine.
Yeah.
I like being fairly transparent with the people
Okay.
I talk with stuff. So sales are right now pretty standard in person. I feel like a lot of people, economy wise, were still like 23, 24, 25 was kind of an odd stretch, I think, for a lot of people in terms of spending money. I will say though, so far this month I've sold, last time I checked was like 11 books. So 11 books online for a lot of people. It's like, that's like coffee money. But I went back to last year's and compared it. Last January, I sold 2 books online throughout the entire course of January, and then 2 the next month, and then 2 afterwards. So when I'm comparing it, it's like, okay, this month I have sold more than the first 3 months of the year combined. So it's growth. It's not like an overnight kind of success thing, but I I'm pretty happy. It's a good positive directional change, and I'm excited to see how the year goes.
That's a great answer, actually.
Yeah.
But all right, so now
All right.
we are going to take it to the game that
Yes.
you've been talking about it on Twitter. I know you just played it. It's like a year old. Everyone's already
Yeah.
talked about it.
Yeah.
We don't have to worry about spoiling it because everyone's already finished
Yeah,
it,
that's
right?
okay. Yes. My thing is, look, I'm too cheap to buy games when they're released. I don't I will not spend $60 on a game. I worked at GameStop for a couple of months. I just refuse to buy day one. It's just kind of a principle. Um, but I gotten to the point where it was like, okay, the Steam sale is coming up. I've just finished up probably my longest book to date. I actually have free time on my hands. Why don't I try to play this game? Um, so I picked up Baldur's Gate 3, and then immediately my husband saw that I was sinking unreasonable hours into this game. And then my brother-in-law also saw, and we were on this like family sharing thing. I remember going in one day, I'm like, I'm gonna play some Baldur's Gate 3 to find out somebody was playing my copy of Baldur's Gate 3.
Oof.
And I was like, guys, I just bought the game yesterday. Could you let me play my game for more than one day?
Family sharing, man.
Yeah,
Ruins everything.
but my brother-in-law very graciously bought his own copy, so now there's 2 copies to share among us. So of the 3 of us, so we got into a pretty good system those days.
Good,
So
good.
yeah.
So I want to know, actually, first, this is actually a smart strategy these days. Michael McLaughlin says, thank you for the $2. I don't actually know what he's referring to. Maybe you do.
I think he's talking about waiting to buy games, and
Yeah.
I actually had a conversation with the husband, and this is an entirely different conversation that I think we might revisit at some point since we're talking about Baldur's Gate 3. One article that I remember that was brought up recently involving, again, I think it was talked about during the initial release, and then recently it's kind of come back around, where I think some game journal was talking about how you can't let Baldur's Gate 3 be the expectation of a game on release. And looking back at that, I'm like, that's a really silly thing to say, because if someone's paying like, okay, so a $60 game is like 4 hours of a lot of people's jobs or more, depending on your employment. Um, I think it's, I don't know. I feel like the video game industry is one of those things that you could talk about all the time. But I think first of all, before we get into anything else, Baldur's Gate 3, I love the fact that when they saw the business model of everybody else, of what everyone else is doing with microtransactions, selling DLCs or basically like hollowed out parts of the game, and they gave you a full complete game. I mean, was it perfect? Probably not. A lot of these games that are that big have at least a bug or two on, but they gave a complete game for they gave people their money's worth. That's for sure, from what I've been seeing.
Yeah. That article that you're talking about, I think I tweeted about it at the time, but it is, I think it is an insane criticism to say your game is too good and now we're afraid that everyone's going to expect games like that. Like, imagine, like, I feel like the devs of Baldur's Gate 3 must have had something to do with that. If that were me, if I were putting out a game, I would totally seed hit pieces like, this game is too good.
And I'd be like, yes, we're too good. Like, they're like that meme of from the Twilight movie with the 3 vampires on the balcony. Have you seen that one where it's the? I'll send you it. Okay,
I've never seen Twilight.
No, there's this meme format that's going around with the 3 vampires that are like in their fancy fluffy gear, like looking down over. I'll just send it to you later, or someone.
I've probably seen it. I just didn't know it was Twilight.
Yeah, all right. But moving on, because the reference is not applicable. But it's I have a lot of respect for Larian Studios from the get-go. Like, we'll go into the, I guess, the problems, quote unquote, with the game, but I think that starting off, I want to just say that, yeah, they gave us a complete game. They gave us a lot for our money's worth. Like, I know people probably say this is lightweight. I probably have put in around 150 hours over the last couple of weeks, because the snow literally trapped us in, and at some point, so what else are you gonna do? But there are people who have put in like over 300 hours between 2 playthroughs, and if you like crunch the math at like $60 for the game, that's a really good value.
Yeah, it is. I actually came to it because I was a massive fan of Divinity Original Sin 2.
Yeah.
And that's kind of why I was like really excited about it when it came out. And I refused to play the beta. I got it on release day and played it from there, and I had a good time with it.
Yeah.
There were some things I thought were a little bit wonky though, but at the same time, I thought it was a very good it was a good Dungeons and Dragons video game.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's a little bit strange because I do not believe that the essence of a tabletop RPG really translates into a video game. And that challenged my belief there a little bit, but
Yeah.
I stand by that. I don't think the essence of a tabletop game can translate into a video game well, because
No. You go ahead and finish your idea.
yeah. Because video games inherently have walls, like walls that programmers put in, and you cannot go outside of those walls. Like, now, if you're approaching the Goblin Camp in Baldur's Gate 3, I think it's it's amazing. Like, every way you can approach it. You can approach the Goblin Camp and slaughter everyone. You can save a goblin and come in as a friend and negotiate your way through it. You can poison their beer and like kill all of them that way. There are a number of approaches you can take, and I think that's really cool that the developers like actually thought about what everything that a player might want to do. And
Yeah.
like there were some things I was like, I doubt I could do this, but I'm going to try anyway. And then I
Yeah.
was shocked to find that it worked. But still, the walls are there, even
Yeah.
though they're quite large, they're quite wide. Like the space you can
Yeah.
work with it is quite wide. The walls are there. And it to me, it just doesn't translate the essence still of a tabletop game.
Yeah.
I don't know.
My thought is that I get that there's a multiplayer mode, and I wasn't a I liked the multiplayer mode, and I don't know if it was just I was starting to kind of edge out of interest to the game. My I don't know if you saw, my husband and I played a little bit in the multiplayer because I kind of wanted to see what it would look like in multiplayer before I hopped in. Um, I think that at the end of the day, Baldur's Gate 3, and I want to play the other Baldur's Gate games. I tried a little bit of one of the Pathfinder games as well, just to kind of see what the standard was in a sense for the genre. These are solo experiences at their core. You're not going to ever get the experience of being at a TTRPG game with other people, warts and all, at a computer game. Um, I would go so far as to saying in-person gaming is probably the best form of gaming. I've done online gaming throughout COVID, but I genuinely think that if you go into Baldur's Gate 3 expecting to have the same feeling as you would at a table, you're going to probably be disappointed. But I think that system-wise, for better or for worse, Baldur's Gate 3 did encapsulate the 5e experience, for better or for worse, like I said, in the gameplay and how things kind of played out.
I think that's pretty accurate, actually. It's just not a great multiplayer experience. And I
Yeah.
think for a video game, actually, let me amend that. For a
Yeah.
video game, I think it is a good multiplayer experience. But when it comes down to it, it is you and your friends experiencing the story of Baldur's Gate 3 together. You are not interacting with your friends in a meaningful way here. You are not, you're not plotting to sabotage your friends. You're not actually helping out your friends so much in the game. You're not doing something where you're each separate entities. You're experiencing something together.
And
yeah,
one way I noticed that is, one, you can't enter cutscenes together. Like most like from what I saw anyways, you can't enter cutscenes together. You can't really interact with another party member in any meaningful way. Which, I mean, if you're over chat, that makes sense, but like you can't like even just say hi in character. And I feel like that really reveals the limitations of it becoming closer to a Baldur's Gate, of an actual TTRPG experience.
And I think I experienced this because I played most of the way through it by myself, but I also played some of the way through it with three friends. And the strange thing was I played with three friends who we play RPGs together. Like it was my D&D group, right?
Yeah.
And we get into character, we role play. It's fairly immersive. I know somebody in the chat's gonna tell me it wasn't immersive, but we normally get into pretty immersive role play together. But in Baldur's Gate 3, for some reason, despite it being like more immersive and having like better graphics than you can have in a tabletop RPG, better, like it had music, it was just designed to be immersive, but yet we did not get into character. And I don't know, maybe that was a problem with us. No one ever spoke to each other in character. Instead, those gremlins
Yeah.
stole they stole Lizel's underwear and became like naked gnomes in camp and stuff, and it was a mess. They were like oh gosh, it was
Like
whew.
gremlins or something.
Yeah, they were gremlins. Like, no, I posted a screenshot a while back on Twitter. It was me and my friends in our very nice gear, and one of them's like a gnome and like bondage, and I'm like, why did you do this? But anyway, it wasn't,
Yeah.
nothing about it like made us want to role play our characters,
Yeah.
which
And
is
I think that's the inherent limitation of the game, is that when it comes to actually connecting, because coding only takes you so far. And when I'm even thinking about those being limitations, I'm like, you know what? For the price tag we had and how much they gave, I'm not sure if how much more they could have done in that iteration. At some point, unless it becomes like an MMO RPG, there's really not much else you can do for multiplayer. But there is always going to be a limitation to the RPG of a preset, pre-coded kind of scenario, I think. That being said, I haven't played the earlier Baldur's Gate lines. I wanna play the second game at least, and I want to play Divinity Original Sin 2 because I heard that was like recommended as a good follow up. I'm gonna
yeah.
wait until another sale comes around though. I have a lot of work to do, so I can't really jump into another immersive 300 year 300 hour experience.
I totally agree. I don't actually play a whole lot of video games, believe it or not. I play like one video game with my friends sometimes, and
Mm.
it's not one anyone would ever guess, probably.
Stardew
Um,
Valley?
no,
Dang
no.
it.
I play a lot. Like I play Phasmophobia. I play
Hmm.
with like a few of my friends like all the time. It's
I've
just like a puzzle horror
I've
game.
played
I
that
enjoy it.
before and I
Yeah.
like yeah, okay, so I side note, uh I can't do horror video games. I just have too like I have a nervous disposition. Like I trip over nothing. I like I'm too small. I'm like a chihuahua almost, like those shaking chihuahuas that you see all the time. Like
Yeah.
that's
It's
me
like
as a person. So I remember years ago I was playing those old Nancy Drew her interactive games, like on the Bubble PC computer, the ones that came with the pinball
oh yeah.
added in. I remember there was this point where I got to the game, and all of a sudden it's like the Haunted Mansion one. All of a sudden I hear like a voice saying Nancy, and I hit the power button on the computer.
Yeah,
I
that's
had
like
not saved in forever, and all that was gone.
for some reason, that's like the only type of game I really even play anymore is like horror games with friends. So it's
Yeah,
like that, Lethal Company, stuff like that.
yeah.
I enjoy it. I don't know why. I'm like a baby about it too.
No,
It's good.
it's
But
like Left 4 Dead was like my
oh, yeah.
comfort game for like ever until I realized other games existed. So
And thank you so much, Doc Flamingo, for the $5. Video games engage the mathematical part of your brain, not the verbal. Thus, you
mm,
are not so inclined to do what you would at the table. I think that's true. I
yeah,
think a lot of that is true. And also, there's not like it feels like when you're at a table with other people, you have kind of a responsibility to be in character
yeah,
because the game is held up by different people at the table participating. And even if it's just the DM that's doing things in character, if the players aren't in character, the game falls apart.
yeah,
And that responsibility just isn't there when you're playing a video game. And I think that's
yeah.
part of it. Yeah.
Yeah, because when you're
Yeah.
like waiting for 20 more people to finish up their turn and the scrolling thing before, it's like your mind starts drifting and it's like, okay, what is Goblin number 5 gonna do before ogre? Uh, don't you write horror books, Alyssa? Yes,
Yeah.
yes, I do. It's called
Oh, yeah.
I I don't. Look, I just have a very active imagination, and the last two houses I've lived in have both been over 100 years old. Almost, well, okay. The one before this, my house, was well over 100 years old, like Bilbo aged. And this is my home that I live in is 130 years, not 100. It was 1930s, so it's almost 100. So I remember the first couple nights that I slept here, I was just like waiting for something to jump out at me. And I'm like, at some point, I'm just get so tired that I'm like, okay, Jerry, shut up. I'm going to bed now. And I would just like ignore the monster in the garage and I would go into my room and I'd go to sleep because I'm tired. No one cares anymore.
So
like that kind of energy.
you've experienced a haunting?
Um,
Maybe?
so okay, I've talked about this on X a little bit. I had a stretch in my early 20s of having I would call it was a combination of physiological and mental health kind of a crisis, if that makes sense. I was born with Lyme's disease, so I'd had chronic illness throughout my life. And I'd actually just beat it in 2020. But leading up to that point and throughout the writing of my first book, I was going through some issues involving something called, well, which a combination of the Lyme's, something called Bartonella's. And I only really found out about it because I was starting to have mental health issues. Early on into the medication and things, I now, for the record, other people had experienced phenomena in the house I'd lived in at that point before. But I remember being in the shower one day and just hearing men's laughter. And no one else was in the house at that time. I heard boot steps on the stairs so loud that I actually left the house and called the people who owned the house and said, "Hey, I heard boot steps. Are you guys?" Hi, Otter. That's not what I told them. But like, I, uh, but because of all this stuff, like, um, I went through a portion of my life where I had to ask myself a lot of really difficult questions about who I was, and I guess it scared me to a certain extent. And when you have to face that kind of intrinsic fear about who you are, the person you could become, and the person you need to become, you can find a lot of I'm not saying I poured my little heart out into that first book, but there was just um, that's really where the horror in myself comes from. It comes from seeing things that weren't there for a stretch, but also looking at myself one day and saying, because I have nieces and nephews, like, if I became a mom today, would I be a good mom? And I had to tell myself honestly no. And like that kind of self-reflection. So that's really where my horror comes from. I'm really an anxious kind of person. The funny thing is my husband will listen to Creepcast all the time though, and we'll watch horror movies together, but I don't like the immersive horror experience. It like, no, I'm just gonna hit the power button again and
You
go watch
understand.
Columbo for the 30th time.
That was pretty deep and personal. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Um,
I it's something I've talked about on X before, and I think it's as a Christian, I like telling people this is the person I was, this is the person I am, this is the person I'm becoming, um, because I write spooky stuff, but I want my legacy to be one of hope, that the world is going to be better than it is, and inspire people. And I don't know. Just that life is going to get better if you're in a bad spot. Life can get better. So that kind of thing.
And I hate to, oh man, I can't think of a not sleazy way to do this, but I'm
All
going to
right, all right,
segue
go ahead
from
and
that
go ahead
to
and
super
all right,
chats.
go ahead.
So that was beautiful, Alyssa. It really
Thank
was.
you.
Jack McCarthy says, with this many viewers, I think it demonstrates that the TTRPG community is starved for female voices talking sense. I thank you very much. That means a lot. The words more so than the dollars, but thank you. As JLME Jelme says, love hearing ghost stories. So sleazy, yeah, not because of your guys' super chat. Sleazy to go from something that deeply personal
No,
to
no,
money.
it's fine.
But
Like
you know, I like money.
I'm open about my story. There's
So
so it's but yeah, so and guys, thank you
um,
so much for showing up tonight. It genuinely means a lot that you
oh
are
man,
here with us and hanging out with us and roasting us mildly in the comments for our personal
yeah,
preferences.
you know,
Yeah.
there's these guys like doing that, but
Oh, good,
I
fun.
have a ghost story too.
Okay, all right.
Actually,
Tell
if you want to
us.
hear, I've never told
Okay, all
this
right.
story on stream. I don't think I've ever told this story online before, but
Okay, all
I
right,
do
all
have
right.
a ghost
First,
story.
all right, here we
Um,
go.
yeah, so this is like brand new. So I don't think people know my job. I've
All
worked in
right.
property management for about 5 years now, and I manage this property. And this lady moves into this property, and she moves in with her like twins, and everything's going fine for a while, and then everything starts breaking at once. Like the fan's breaking, there's a massive leak, the toilet's breaking, like everything in this apartment's breaking. And she's calling me saying the lights are flickering at night. We turn them off, but they're like coming back on, and we don't know what to do. We don't know how to do this. I'm like, what is going on? What is happening? So anyway,
Get out.
I'm over there one day, and we, I'm like trying to figure out what's going on. So I'm getting into like the I believe it was the air conditioning, because the air conditioning broke because everything was breaking, right? And so I get into the air conditioning and I find this box behind the AC unit. It's like a wooden box. I'm like, what is this? What have I found? It was ashes. And I'm like, whose ashes are these? Whose ashes are at this rental place? So I'm like calling the lady who lived there last, and she's like, "Oh yeah, that's my ex-husband." And I'm like, "Do you want him back?" She's like, "No."
Do you want them back?
Like, what do I do with this? I don't know what to do with this box of ashes. And so I just I like, she gave me a phone number to like his mother. And so I'm like calling around, and I'm like trying to call around and contact this man's family because I found his ashes behind the air conditioning unit of our rental property. And I just it took me forever to find him, and I ended up driving across town to like give this man's ashes back. And at that point, nothing ever broke again. Like
That's
everything was fixed. It was
I don't want to laugh, but like the moment when you're like, "Do you want him back?" and she's like, "No." Do you want your ex-husband back?
right. I didn't know who it was. Like my first thought was to contact the lady that lived there last, and she was like, "Yeah, that's my ex-husband." I'm like, "What?" So I was like, "Do you want him back?" And she's like, "No." And I was like,
No.
"What do I do with him? Like, why do you even have this?"
Why do you have your ex-husband's ashes?
Right. It was and I don't mean to laugh because this was a tragedy. Like somebody died.
No,
I
no,
don't
no,
know.
no, no. It's
I
well,
mean, it was just
you deal with it through laughing through it. Like if you can't laugh at it, it's like what can you do?
that was my the closest thing I've ever had to a paranormal encounter. And I spent the night in one time at one of the most haunted places in the US, Waverly Hills Sanitarium in Louisville, Kentucky. I spent the night there once, and I was like so looking for a ghost all night, man. I wanted to see something cool. I wanted to see something supernatural. Didn't find it. A couple years later, had the ashes in the AC unit incident, and it the moral is
Yeah,
it like comes up when you're not looking for it,
yeah,
right?
no, no. Like I feel that same way. So when I was in college studying to do creative writing, I studied abroad for like 2 weeks in Scotland. We went into like the old Edinburgh. We went under there, supposed to like super haunted. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Like just feel like, oh, all these things are here. It's like I there's nothing, guys. Like, and then I get home and there's like apparently the previous owner, like she saw the apparition of the older lady who died there, who was married, and apparently the husband was just chilling even though the wife had moved on, and it's just like, okay,
You never know, man. You
you
never
know,
know what's out there.
yeah, that's true.
But
Um
anyway,
yeah.
is there anything in chat you want to address, or anything I didn't ask you about that you wanna talk about while you're thinking
No.
about that? Thank you, Jack, for
The
the reaction.
yeah.
I personally love that story. I've never really been
Yeah,
able to tell it online
it,
before.
it's it's a great story. Like
Thank
I'm
you.
gonna write notes and writing some
Good.
notes on the side. Great story, yeah. Like I'll
Just
send you
imagine moving out of an apartment though and just
leaving
deciding,
your
"Oh, I'll just leave it."
I mean I've Jack, Harmony, I made this Ashton the coffee. That guy had weak taste.
I have never eaten any dead body. The fact
Jack,
that I said that out loud makes it less.
um, so do we want to? Because I know we'd been planning to chat Baldur's Gate. Do we want to hop back there for a couple minutes or?
Sure. I have to know.
Okay.
You said something before stream that I thought was absolutely insane.
Okay.
Like
Okay.
before we went live, you had the most insane,
I did.
wrong, just ridiculous Baldur's
Yes,
Gate
I
opinion.
did.
And
Okay.
I have to know about that one thing you said. You said that your favorite companion in the game was, I must have
Karlach.
heard you wrong, Carla.
Karlach. Okay, so
Okay.
if we want the actual order of people, I would say it's Karlach, Asterion, Hausen. I don't know. The other ones shuffle a little bit. Gale, Lae'zel, and Shadowheart kind of like cycle through as to like who is my least favorite at any given time, depending on the playthrough. I know that sounds bad, but like Karlach, like okay, Karlach is like the only person who like seems to actually smile in a genuine way throughout the game.
That's fair.
Yeah. Karlach is like like when I did my first playthrough, I did cleric human. I decided I'm gonna do like straightforward, heroic, see like the being the best person you can be. Led me into an interesting scene with the Elithid, which we'll get to later. But
Will we?
maybe I don't know. That actually scares me more than the ghost.
Okay.
Maybe. But like the when we got to the point with Karlach, because I don't know if I did this wrong, because I really thought I did. Like her companion quest was the one that I was like really focused in on. When we got to Baldur's Gate and we defeated Gortash, and like Karlach was asking what was this all for, I actually started tearing up because she's like, I'm still gonna die. And I don't know, like it just, out of all the companions, it was the first one that actually like pulled a genuine emotion out of me, because and then to have her, you talk with her later and she's just like, well, I'm gonna die, but we're gonna do this. We're gonna finish this out. It's just like she wasn't super dramatic about it. She was just acknowledging the fact that she was going to die and that this was it. And the route we eventually took was she was the one who became the Illithid, because at that point in the character arc it kind of made sense. I'm going to go back specifically to find a way to save Karlak, because she was literally my favorite. She smiled genuinely. She laughed. She was just a fun person to be around. And I don't know, like I'm glad I restarted, because I started off by playing an elf wizard and I missed so much. Like I was like, okay, well, we'll get to your side quest later. And I didn't encounter Karlak until the end of the first arc. And
Oh,
I missed so much with that first, so I ended up aborting that playthrough, and then going back and then restarting with the cleric. I might get back to it at some point. But I went back and got Carl, and it's just like she just feels the most like a genuine person who just comes back from adversity, and I think that I just really liked Karlak.
I to be perfectly honest, I'd seen her through a little bit of the first act, and I didn't like her. It was strange that she didn't do that at the end in my playthrough. She didn't die at the end of my playthrough. Um, but I think it probably had something to do with the fact that after Act One, her head was no longer attached to her body. So I'm guessing there was a little bit of a cause and effect there. But I liked Lizelle. I was a Lizelle person.
Okay,
Yeah.
Lizelle. Okay, all right. Okay, so here's what happened. I couldn't find Lizelle. Oh no, I actually ended up killing Lizelle. I think. I was trying to remember. Did I kill Lizelle or did I forget to find Lizelle?
You
No,
just
no.
left
I
her for the
I
teachings.
I couldn't find her. I just didn't find her. I didn't feel like I'm looking around and just like, where is she? So I actually ended up getting her for the evil arc, and I remember, because so the husband started playing it as well, and one day we're just after he started it, and we're just lying in bed, and he just looks at me, he's like, Lisa is really aggressive, and I'm like, what? And I'm like, yeah, she just like throws herself at you like randomly, and I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, and
I
I'm
had
like,
that feeling with a few of them.
and I'm like, oh, maybe it's because you're playing a guy character. Lo and behold, the next day, and she's just like, I'm going to like make, I don't know, and I'm like, what the heck is wrong with you?
Yeah.
Like that's I'm like I just was like, she's my evil, my chaotic evil drow character is just looking at her like, you're messed up. Yeah,
I will say this is my problem with Baldur's Gate 3. This is like my
okay.
number one problem. The fact that every single companion throws themselves at you, and it's like
Yes.
I don't really want to play a romance game. I want to play like
Yeah,
a
and
D&D like
like
game. But
you have to reject her for her to become like
yeah.
an okay person. Like
So
Gale and Lazelle were like, when Gale wasn't trying to throw himself at you, he actually became a more interesting character.
yeah, I find that a lot of them do that. But what I noticed in this game that I didn't like was that of the main six companions, and I guess Halsin's like the exception here, it seems like all the women are like really badass and like kind of
Yeah.
cool. Like I'm not much of a Karlak fan, and it's not because she's a tiefling. It's because I don't know, her attitude kind of
I
annoys me if I'm being honest. But
yeah, it's
there's
fair.
also but the other two, I like Shadowheart and I like Lizelle, but it seems like they have these like big strong female characters, and then like the guys are just so lame. I'm sorry.
Halson
Will
kind
Halson's
all
fine,
right.
but like
Like
yeah,
Halson, okay, all right. Here's what happened with my cleric character. Um, I I was playing her as like a generally being nice to everybody kind of person, and all of a sudden, after we rescue Halson from Orin, he's just like, I want to make sweet love to you, and I'm like, what is wrong with you? Can we be just friends, please? Can you not? And literally, I tell him in the chat, I just want to be friends. I'm not into polyamory. And
Oh
then I
God.
trigger a cutscene where he like rips off his clothes, and I'm like, ah! Like there's this scream that goes off in my head, and I'm like, what is wrong with you? Stop it! And then
I don't
I hit
know.
escape and then go back to my save, and I'm like, I don't even want to be friends with you anymore. Like trying
It's
not to trigger the cutscene.
it's weird that to me it's weird that they took like an RPG and made it into like a dating simulator. I'm not really it's actually the worst part about that game to me. It's kind of gross. And a couple of things I want to address. Quick TV says Will is the most heroic of them all. Yeah, I have found like he seems to have zero personality is my
Yeah.
issue with him. Like he's just very
Will
very bland.
Will was
Um
a very like okay, all right. This kind of brings me to one other thing that I realized.
mhm.
Okay, so I think Lord Otter said it really well at some point that the game has all like the best qualities of 5e and the worst qualities of 5e. And I think one of the things that really bothered me is that when you're meeting all of these companions, they're supposed to be level 1, and yet all of them have these backstories that should label them as like a level probably 12 or 13 in terms of power. Like Karlak is supposed to be like the watchdog for Zariel, and she's level 1. Like that doesn't make sense. Like Gale is supposed to be like who literally was powerful enough with the weave that he got Mistra herself to fall in love, and he's level 1. I Part of that really just doesn't mesh. And it makes me wonder if there could have been an excuse built in with the Mind Flayer where they lost access to a lot of their abilities because of the Mind Flayer, and they had to reconnect with those abilities. I think that would have made it a lot more interesting in some ways, but I really just
I think you made a
yeah.
great point here, and that is why player character backstories at low levels are should be short
Yeah.
and are kind of lame. But real quick, Michael Dale, thank you so much for the $10.
Mhm.
The real question is, when are the two of you going to make a guest appearance on Delver's stream as a pair of villainous NPC sisters to TPK his 1E group in real time? I'm in talks about maybe joining that group. It's not certain yet. I have some commitments on Tuesdays, so I'm not
Yeah.
100% sure if I'll be able to. Do you have any comment?
Yeah. If I'm being completely honest, I don't like live streaming when I play TTRPGs. I've done it once with Dungeon Delver, and I I had fun. I just realized that I got a lot of anxiety out of the situation, especially because um I'd never played AD&D before that night, and I just felt like I felt kind of out of place and a little embarrassed if I'm being completely honest.
This
And that
is
had nothing to do with everybody else. It's just I didn't know what I was doing, and didn't know what I was doing in front of a lot of people. I think they meant in the chat that Gail said he could cast much higher level spells before the tadpoles with their heads. That yes, but it's not like it's elaborated. It feels like it could have been elaborated on a lot more. I feel like if these are very powerful characters who are reduced to nothing, I feel like that should have a lot more impact in their dialogue and in how they interact with each other. Um, and none of them really had that except for maybe a couple mentions here and there. Um, I
you.
really wish that they had given a little bit more um time to them being kind of vulnerable and kind of then I don't know. I If I can rob it for a second, when I was thinking about the romance aspect of it, thought back to Dragon Age Origins, and I realized I want to get his name right because I really liked his character, Sten. I think I have his name correct. Someone in the chat can correct me wrong. He was the original Canary character in Dragon Age Origins. If you ever get a chance to play Dragon Age Origins, it's a really good example of like, I think Dragon Age was actually the spiritual successor to Dragon Age 2 when it came out. So it's kind of the same game, except for in a different world and not really fight like D&D and I can use words, I swear. It's not really D&D. But it's in that same vein. Sten, what they had less romanceable options in Dragon Age Origins, but that allowed you freedom to interact and create relationships on a different dynamic with these characters. Like Sten, you couldn't romance, but he was a philosopher. Like he had a philosophical difference from the player character. When you first meet him, he's in a cage. And it's been a while since I've played the game, so I could be wrong on some points. But what I remember distinctly about him is that you meet him when he's in a cage, and he could break out of that cage, but he doesn't. And he doesn't break out of that cage because he has done something where he is fated to be there and remain there. You as the player convince him to leave the cage and join you, even though he is the Canary. Their people has a you are fated to your fate kind of thing, and then you as a player, you interact with that philosophy and you break him out of it, you challenge it, and that's how you meet him. And when I was thinking about it, I was like, I really wish we had at least one or two characters, companions that you couldn't romance in this game that allowed you to have a deeper friendship or like a battle of wits or growing respect. I enjoyed my interactions when you weren't romancing the characters in Baldur's Gate 3. You got a better interaction with them, but yeah. Yeah, 7-bit Brian has it correct. But that's what I think the Baldur's Gate 3 was really missing.
Yeah. I think somebody said it was missing like a stout, strong dwarven character. I agree with that. I would have totally taken a dwarf as a companion. However, might I turn your attention to Divinity Original Sin 2, who has the Beast, which is the greatest companion in any of these.
It is on my wish list now. I will let you know.
Yeah, that Divinity Original Sin 2's companion characters are much better than Baldur's Gate 3. I want to go back to something you said like 5 minutes ago.
Sorry, I rambled for a minute there.
No, you're good. Whatever, it's fine. This is a chill stream with organization.
Yeah,
this doesn't happen here. But anyway, something you said a little bit ago. You were talking about why you don't like playing in actual plays. And I truly feel the same way. And actually, I get a lot of people that are saying, why don't you do your Godstein as an actual play? Why like, maybe you're not even a good DM. Like, whatever. I don't need to prove anything to anyone. But like, that's actually like why I don't do it, because I don't want my players to feel embarrassed or to feel like I have to watch what I say because I don't know Ginger's audience. I don't know if they're okay if I say swear words. I don't know if I'm afraid to get completely immersed because I'm afraid they're going to laugh at me, or I'm going to look stupid, or someone's going to try and cancel me, or something like that. I'm afraid to ask about words or ask about rules because they're going to think I didn't read the rules. Like, I don't want my players to feel that way. I want them to get immersed and
And I feel like pre-Critical Role coming out, there's a different audience expectation for live stream game at this point, or like recorded games. I think I watched maybe part of one Critical Role game, and I was just like, this is just not. I'm not connecting. There's like it's 4-hour chunks, and it's just like I'd rather just go find a D&D group to play with than watch other people play D&D. And I think the biggest part of it was I don't know. I just feel like I think especially with the culture online sometimes, the last thing you want is to say something that people might construe as offensive or whatever, and then have the chat be bombarded, and then have some random, like someone random, some your life get like ruined, and you get doxxed because one person took offense to something that they misheard on a live stream. It's just, it adds a lot of
Exactly.
it adds a lot of pressure, I think, to something that should be entertainment. It's like, um I, I, I don't know. I feel like there are some people who are built to live stream things, and
Mhm.
um I'll be honest, a lot of my life I am connected to the internet because I do marketing, and I do live streams, and I do events in person, and it's just like, when I go to play D&D, I don't want to be author Alyssa Hazel, seller of books, and have my identity, my online persona attached to everything I do. I just want to go be Alyssa, insert my married name, last name here, and I'm a mildly kleptomaniac, cleric rogue hybrid who is slowly losing their mind. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, you
yeah,
wanna be your character.
yeah,
And it's really hard because, like, I want to give my players
mhm,
the best experience they can playing the game in the way they wanna play it, and I don't believe that streaming something like that online is conducive to that. I
yeah,
think it's, I and I agree with, quick, that's a spicy one. I agree that, that it is not that watching D&D is boring and playing D&D is fun. Uh, that's where I am. I don't want to be Harmony Ginger when I play D&D.
yeah,
I want to be Ellie the Ranger that maybe forgot to research bluettes before wandering into a bluettes lair, and well, now I'm gonna
yeah,
be something else. Um, yeah, that was a fun one.
yeah,
Anyway,
yeah.
um, I spicy but true. Absolutely. All right. I think we're going to go ahead and draw this to a close.
Mhm.
Thank you very much, everybody, for coming out. Alyssa, you
Yeah,
were an amazing guest. I had a lot of
thank
fun.
you.
Normally, here's how much fun I had. This is how great this stream was for me. Normally, when I sit down one on one and talk with people, it's like an hour. We're pushing an hour and a half, and it's just because I like you. So,
Yeah,
if you
I
want to,
yeah.
oh, go ahead.
No, no. I just want to say thank you so much for having me on. I feel like we've been like eyeballing each other across the room for a while, so um it's nice to just finally just sit down and chat with you. And um if you want to have me back, I'd be more than happy to plop something on and talk with you
I'm
again at some point.
currently not actually sure exactly what I'm doing with this channel.
Yeah,
I'm trying to get back into doing this week by week and on Sunday evenings
yeah.
talking to someone. Next
Um,
Sunday, I'm going to be back here with,
cool.
I'm bringing part of the Godstein group in, and you guys
Yeah,
can ask them any questions you want, and we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I should have 4 or 5 of my players here with me next week in order to answer questions. Of course, that's on a completely voluntary basis, and I totally didn't
yeah,
blackmail
yeah.
or
The gun below the
force anyone to be here.
below the camera.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah.
Um, I'm sorry. Did you want to say something? Close
No,
us
no,
out?
no. I was just saying, like, at some point in the future, if you'd like to have it, more than happy to, or if you just want to, like, let's not put her back on the schedule. Either way, I've had a lot of fun. And yeah, I'm just happy to have been here.
All right, wonderful. I will see you guys next week. And
Hmm.
let's see, is there anything else? Oh, yes, follow Alyssa Hazel on Twitter. She is author. No, she is Alyssa Hazel on Twitter with 3 S's, which tripped
Yeah.
me up so many times. I was like, why
Well,
can't I find this girl?
well,
Um,
okay. So, because
and,
I didn't necessarily want people to find me easily.
oh, well, it worked.
Well, because it's just like X is kind of like, if you want the official author Alyssa Hazel, you go on Instagram and on Facebook. And if you want to find out where to meet me in person, just dropping my Facebook. I'm getting close to 600 followers there. So if you want to find out where my events are, that's there.
All right.
Um, but I feel like I'm more deranged on X, and more like I kind of do whatever I want on
It's
X, and
okay. That's what X is for. X is for
that's
shit posting. I say like some really crazy things on X.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, follow Alyssa Hazel on X. She also has a website. You will find that in the video description. And anyway, I will see you all next week.
All right.
Bye,
Sounds good.
guys.
Bye.